This is your Wednesday daily delivery. I am Michael Rand. Glad to have you guys back again for another show. We got a lot to get to today, a lot of stuff on my little show rundown sheet. Chip Scoggins will join me here in just a moment to talk college football, talk a little Twins as well. Always love catching up with Chip, and so I'll get to that in just a minute. Jake Cave, no longer a Twin. What was your favorite Jake Cave moment? We'll talk about that a little bit. Got a good listener, reader question about the Big Ten Media Day, how it relates to Minneapolis. Got a Timberwolves thought, got some playoff baseball thought, and a Brett Favre thought. Punt Brett Favre to the moon. So tired of this guy, but another development in the Brett Favre welfare case, I guess is how you'd put it. Maybe more than that, but we'll get to that towards the end of the show. A little departure in format today. Usually the interview, if you've been a listener for a while, you notice that usually comes a little bit later on. But I thought my interview with Chip Scoggins was so good and so interesting that I wanted to get to that earlier on today. I don't want to make you wait for what I consider probably to be the best part of today's show. So I'm going to get to that first today instead of making you hold on for a few other minutes. Let's get Chip Scoggins back on. It's been a little while since Chip and I talked. He's resumed the Football Across Minnesota feature column that's been very popular. So I wanted to talk to him about the latest installment a little bit. Also wanted to get some Gopher football thoughts and maybe some Twins thoughts as well. Chip, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How you doing?
I'm doing well, thanks. It's as of recording, I'm sure it'll be a little chillier as of listening, but it's like 80 degrees right now. We're recording. It's ridiculous mid-October day, but I'm sure by the time they play some football games this weekend, it will cool down a little bit. Speaking of getting cooled down a little bit, though, Chip, Gopher football, the difference in how we're talking about them right now, we're coming off one loss against Purdue and then the bye week, and then you kind of see some teams around them, especially Illinois, the team they will play on Saturday, have some positive outcomes. I know there was a little bit of a defensive tussle against Iowa, but the week before that, beating Wisconsin. This suddenly, you went from talking about when's the next loss to, man, it's going to be hard for them to find a win anytime soon with Illinois and at Penn State back to back.
Yeah, well, this suddenly becomes the biggest game on the season, and it's funny how things can change in 1 week, and the way that the Gophers had played those first 4 games, the way they just steamrolled the opponent, made you feel like, okay, this is the best team in the West when you looked around at some of the way the other teams were playing. And then, they really lay an egg and just have some uncharacteristic mistakes in that Purdue game. And just, they didn't play well. It was just a really poor performance on the offense. I thought the defense played well enough to win, but the offense just kind of imploded. And so now you look at Illinois, and they're very good defensively. They're banged up on offense with their quarterback, and so we'll see if their starters able to play or not. But the Gophers are favored to go in there and win. I think that's a part of Illinois' injuries, but also getting Mohamed Ibrahim back, which is going to be a big boost for them, obviously on the field, but I think also emotionally because he is their leader, he's their guy, and so. But the West is weird. There's not a clear-cut favorite right now. I think a lot of people are looking at Purdue because they've beaten the Gophers, and so they have that head-to-head tiebreaker if it comes down to that. But I don't think there's one team that you can say, this is the clear-cut, this is who you can trust to go win this division. And so it's still there for the Gophers. Now they can't, they shrunk their margin of error, and it's that this game Saturday, if they, are going to be in the mix, they need to win because, like you said, you go to Penn State next week, and obviously that's going to be a tough challenge. So this Illinois game is the biggest game of their season right now.
I was over at Gopher Access Tuesday. Linebacker Mariano Sori-Marin, who was on the podcast actually a few weeks ago, declared that they went 1-0 on the bye week. So it sounds like they did some good regrouping. That said, Chip, did you see things in the Purdue game that make you concerned, big picture potentially, or do you feel like it's a one-off and they can kind of get back to where they were?
No, I think the one area that really jumped out was how poorly their offensive line played. Even I think PJ's exact words was they got dominated by Purdue, and Illinois is going to be the best front that they face. Illinois is really good defensively.
Yes.
They're number 1 nationally in scoring defense, 2 in total defense. They're very strong in the trenches. And so that's going to be the key to me. Now, getting Mo back will help them because he's able to break tackles. We've seen him turn gains that should be 0 or negative into 4-yard, rushes because he's so powerful and shifty. But that offensive line has to play better. I mean, they just do. It was the level of competition jumped up, and they didn't respond well to it. And the other thing was the inconsistency with their wide receiver core without Chris Ottman-Bell. Michigan State, they made all kinds of plays, and a bunch of different guys stepped up. Purdue, they did not. You had, dropped touchdown pass. It should have been. I think some guys probably ran some wrong routes. It just didn't look like the same group. And so those two areas, to me, if they're going to be a team that is right there to be in the mix to win the West, those two areas have to be a lot better than they were against Purdue.
Clearly, it's a program that is aiming for a higher profile. We saw Tuesday. Now that's 10 years down the road, but adding Alabama to the schedule gets your attention a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? 10 years in college football feels like a million years at this point. The way the landscape's changing. I have my doubts that either coach will be there 10 years from now. I might not be there too. God willing, I'll make it till 10 years from now. But this is how it works. I know people are like, oh, this is 10 years out. Well, this is how scheduling in college football works. It's not a year-to-year thing. They have to schedule this far out. And so, but for people that complain about the schedule this year and playing, a soft week schedule, this is what you want to see them do. I mean, again, there's no guarantee what shape either program is going to be in 10 years from now, but this is what you would hope that the Gophers are doing, that they're scheduling big competition, and this will be a fun trip. No matter what the shape of the programs are, this will be a fun trip for fans to go to because it's something you haven't seen. Yeah.
I'm sorry, Marin joked too that he and Tanner Morgan will be excited to play in the game.
Tanner's still be the quarterback.
Acknowledging they've been around for a little while, but that does get back to let's bring it back to football for one more thing before I ask you about football across Minnesota, a little broader subject, and maybe some Twins. Experience is supposed to be one of the calling cards of this year's team. They do have a lot of those guys that came back for extra time, and that probably needs to carry the day in this game. How do you feel like that, plays into especially the leadership, and especially as you think about they always seem to have this even keel and trying to get back into that mode where they are leaning on those guys that have gotten them there before?
Well, I thought that the experience that they have would help them avoid a game like we saw against Purdue where it was a clunker.
Right.
But now that it's happened, you would hope that experience plays a part in them being able to respond and bounce back. And, a lot of these guys were there for a really bad loss last year in the non-conference.
Right.
And they saw that you can regroup. And so I would hope that, having Mo and Tanner and more, Marin and, Tyler Newman, all these guys that have played a lot of football, that they understand that, okay, that was a bad loss. That was a bad performance. But, all is not lost with their goal of trying to win the West. They still have a lot of season to play. So I would hope that the maturity of those guys will play a part in how they go respond at Illinois. And I think they will. I think they'll bounce back. I really like their defense. I think their defense is going to keep them in pretty much most games, if not every game. So it's just, they have a lot of speed there. It's just, is the offense going to click? And to me, again, it goes back to that offensive line. They did not perform well enough to beat Purdue, and so they're going to have to do that this week against Saturday against a really, really good, tough, physical Illinois defense.
Take a playcation to Mystic Lake. With 24/7 gaming, the good times never have to end. And you can satisfy your cravings at our restaurants and bars. Or relax in one of our luxurious hotel rooms. Those that play together, stay together. And don't forget to join Club M so you can spark new memories and bask in the rewards along the way. Follow the lights to Mystic Lake, where every day is play day.
So I wanted to ask you about football across Minnesota. It's off to a really good start again this fall. What do you got cooking in the latest installment?
Yeah, we're doing it later, and fingers crossed. But I think I'm going to have a conversation with Ethan Glenn, the Bloomington Jefferson freshman who had the tragic accident, I guess you would call it, on a tackle in a game earlier this year where he was left paralyzed. Talked to Ethan's dad, and we'll see. But I hopefully have a conversation with Ethan and his mom. He's in a rehab facility in Colorado right now, working really hard, and so hopefully, sounds like he's really attacking it with the same kind of mindset that he approached sports. Very determined, very focused, very driven. He's impressed his medical team down there with how his courage and his kind of inconquerable spirit in the way he's dealing with this. And so hopefully have a conversation with him, and that'll be the next one. And we got some pretty cool features in mind that are down the road. And so, yeah, it's been this year or two, and it's been a lot of fun getting to share stories and hear stories from the football community in Minnesota that might otherwise not get told.
Well, yeah, and the fun thing about it, and one of the really interesting things about it is you can kind of write about any level. You can just go find the story, and obviously some things jump out at you, and you're going to write about the big stories. You're going to write a little bit about the Vikings, a little bit about the Gophers, things like that. Those are the things that are of interest to readers no matter what. But one thing I'm always curious about when I talk to other writers, and I have some of this liberty as well, just to go out and kind of find what I think is interesting. How do you find when you can write about anything? How do you find the thing you want to write about?
Yeah, well, it's really, I try to. I mean, there's so much coverage of the Vikings and Gophers, and I do like the way in there with there's different components of the football across Minnesota where there's game balls or things that the 15-yard penalty stuff that coaching decision that maybe I didn't like or whatever. So I can get to that and have some kind of presence with the Vikings and Gophers. But I like human interest. I like offbeat. I'm planning. I kind of give a little tease here. In the fall, there's a lot of farmers in this state that do their harvesting watching the Gophers on Saturday and the Vikings on Sunday from their combine. Well, I might visit one of those this weekend and be in a combine while the Gophers are playing. So, I mean, to me, those are kind of stories that I think resonate. And it's not your traditional kind of football story, but I hope it tells what's, for a lot of people, that is their lifestyle. For a lot of farmers, this is how they connect with the Minnesota football scene, particularly Gophers and Vikings. And so, to me, that interests me. I find that fascinating. And so, we arrange our schedules so I can go do that. And, our editor, Chris Carr, has been really, really helpful and accommodating to allow me to go find stories in FAM. And if I don't, write a daily column because I have to go do something for FAM, he's great about saying, yeah, let's do that.
I imagine those two, the farmer on the combine story, that really piqued my curiosity too. And I imagine technology has changed to the point where they can watch the game, not just listen to the game. Or I suppose a generation ago, it was all on the radio and things like that.
Sure.
If they were going to do that.
Yeah. Now you have iPads and they're hooked
Sure.
up, and I'm obviously not a farmer, so I don't know how it works, but I think, some have the iPad, some still do it the old school way of listen to Mike Grimm on Saturday and Daryl Thompson and Paul Allen on Sunday with the Vikings. And so they still like to do but this is an important time of the year for those farmers who are doing the harvesting. And it's not like they can say, yeah, I'll just take the Saturday off and go to the game. This, for some of them, that's not a possibility. And so this is how they connect with it. And they've done it for generations. And so I'm looking forward to it. It'll be a new experience for me. So it should be a fun Saturday.
Chip, one more thought for you quick on the Twins. Derek Falvey met with the local media on Monday, kind of outlined the path forward, and it was a lot of stay the course talk. Said he kind of liked the base they have right now. If he could just kind of wave a magic wand, which I don't believe he has, but if he could and say everybody's going to be healthy next year, he kind of likes where they would start from. I wasn't surprised by the message, and I see some merit in it, but I was kind of underwhelmed overall by the lack of we got to get better. That it was more of a message of we're okay as long as we get a little bit better luck. Where do you stand on kind of the Twins going into 2023 and how realistic it is to make more minor changes rather than major changes to get better?
Yeah, I sort of figured. I wrote a column a couple weeks ago because I was getting sick of hearing about the injuries. Yeah. And yes, let's be honest, for the millionth time, injuries did affect their season. But that's not the only reason this team failed, right? And it's become too convenient to just say, well, if we get healthy, we're going to be fine. Well, one, you can't count on health, not with this organization.
No, even if they fired the trainer, which is convenient,
which they've done. And are they going to have this number of injuries? Probably not. I mean, this might be the outlier, but if we're banking on Kenta Maeda being great again next year, well, that's sort of a roll of the dice, right?
Yes.
If you're banking on Byron Buxton being healthy, that's definite roll of the dice. I mean, based on what evidence? And so it sounds like, just reading it, I wasn't there, but it sounds like, he's not inclined to go out and, which has not been their MO, spend a ton of money to try to find a true ace that they think that they have the depth in their rotation. I don't know. I wish they would do that. I wish for once they would go. And they've spent money on position players. We saw it with Correa, which he's not coming back.
No.
I think he's made that pretty abundantly clear in his comments at the end of the season. If you devote that money to pitching, and I know there's injuries and there's always that fear that they're one pitch away from Tommy John, but they're banking on best case scenarios of these guys that I don't know that all of them are going to come through with your best case scenario.
Yeah, that's the thing that bothers me about it. And I the thing that strikes me about it too is I think this is the plan because I don't know what the other plan would be. You know what I mean? Like, I don't
spend money and go get an ace.
But I mean,
they're not going to do that.
I don't know if they're going to do that, and I don't even know if that, like, just in terms of like a bigger shakeup or a thing. I don't know. They don't really have the farm system. They're not really at a point in their trajectory where I don't know if it makes sense to do anything else. I just kind of feel like this is the plan for lack of a better plan, essentially.
Well, and this is what I wrote too. Like, are they going to continue down this? We're not going to let our pitchers go through the third time through the order.
Doesn't sound like it. That sounds like they don't love that, but they sure did it this year.
Well, then you have to upgrade your pitch, and you have to get these guys to stay healthy, and you have to have a rock solid bullpen. You can't just patchwork it together and say, we're going to bring in a couple, reclamation projects and hope that it works out, but we're only going to pitch 4 or 5 innings, and we're going to have a bullpen we don't trust. I mean, that math doesn't work.
No.
So that's where I wonder, again, they're banking on supreme health, which I just don't know if that's realistic. I really don't.
No, I don't either. No, we'll see. It's baseball season's a long ways off. We'll have a lot of football talk before we get to any more baseball talk, probably, but I wanted to get your thoughts on that because I talked about that a lot on Tuesday's show. Chip, good stuff. Illinois this weekend for the Gophers. I'm sure we'll talk again soon, and we'll enjoy the latest installment of FAM and all the rest of them. Take care.
All right, brother. Thank you, man.
Just a couple postscripts to that conversation with Chip Scoggins. The interview he was hoping to get did indeed happen on Tuesday. You can read the full Football Across Minnesota in your Wednesday Star Tribune and on StarTribune.com this morning, today, Wednesday. So hope you enjoy that. We talked about the Twins a little bit. No real losses here to really lament, but some housekeeping to a certain degree. Twins having to trim their roster at the end of the year. Lost a few players to waiver claims, including Jake Cave, longtime Twins outfielder, reserve outfielder. Probably did not expect to be playing as much as he did this season, but injuries kind of turned him into an Iron Man over the last couple months of the season. He was claimed. He was claimed by Baltimore. Jermaine Palacios, reserve infielder who played for the Twins this year, probably did not have much of a future with them. Did not necessarily impress me this year. He was claimed by Detroit. Caleb Hamilton, backup catcher, claimed by Boston. So, a lot of different things going on. Devin Smeltzer placed on waivers, but he actually got through waivers, assigned to AAA St. Paul. So good news there. I think Smeltzer maybe has some, another option for them this year. But the biggest name in there is Jake Cave, who played a lot of games here with the Twins. He was, he did some good work here. He did some decent stuff. He's kind of had some some decline years. The gray beard maybe makes him look older than he is. He's not that old. He's only 29. But the end of the Jake Cave era, I don't know if you had a favorite Jake Cave moment, but there will not be any more unless he somehow finds his way back to the Twins later on. Let's get to a listener reader question from @GirlGopher, one of the original Randball commenters way back in the day. She had a good question. She said, if you didn't live here, would you hate coming here for Big Ten Media Days? And obviously Big Ten Media Days for men's and women's basketball happening in Minneapolis this year, ahead of some of those the Big Ten tournaments being here for both of those sports here in the coming years. So I like that question because it gets to the heart of what journalists look for in a host city, a convention city. And what I would say about Minneapolis is it kind of feels like a good place to host events. And certainly we've had our share of, big events over the years. We had the Final Four for men's basketball and women's basketball. Of course, we had the Super Bowl a few years ago. We've had all sorts of things here, neutral site events. But the thing that makes a city good to kind of come into and spend a few days, and I feel like mid-sized cities like Minneapolis are almost better than the biggest of the big cities, because the biggest of the big cities like Chicago and New York, you're not going to be able to get everywhere you want to. It's a little bit daunting to get around in places like that. Don't get me wrong, love those places. If I had a choice of where to go on vacation, I would go to a city like that over a city like Minneapolis or Indianapolis. But if I'm going somewhere for work to cover something, all you really want is ease of getting in and out of places. You want a downtown with plenty of hotels that's reasonable to walk around in. You want enough good restaurants. You want this and that. You want the ease of logistics more than anything else. So I think Minneapolis is a good city for that. If I was coming here to cover this event, if I didn't live here, I think Minneapolis would be a very fine place to just parachute into for a couple days and then parachute out of, and having enjoyed myself to a certain degree, and most of all, having not been annoyed with logistical problems. So that's what I'd say. I think I would be pleased with the way Minneapolis handled things, and I think they do good work on that front all along the way here. Speaking of basketball, you should read Lavelle E. Neal's column, read Marcus Fuller's coverage of Big Ten Media Days, also read Chris Hines' coverage of the Timberwolves, Star Tribune, StarTribune.com, read his report that said sounds like Karl Anthony Towns and Rudy Gobert will play together in the preseason finale on Friday at Target Center. Now, it sounds like Gobert will get rest Wednesday night when the Wolves play the Lakers in Los Angeles, but then when they play Brooklyn on Friday in that final preseason tune-up, the both of them will take the floor together. They want to make sure they have a little bit of chemistry in those game situations while also preserving their health. Of course, Gobert played a lot of the Eurobasket tournament. Towns had that illness over right before camp started that kind of derailed him a little bit, but both of them back on the court and able to practice and get those reps in that case. But you will see them on the court together on Friday, it sounds like, at Target Center. And, interesting, the season's only a week away. Season starts 1 week from today, and a lot of anticipation for this season. And all that really matters is getting them on the same page when the year starts. A lot of anticipation for how that will look, and pairing those two big guys together. So you might get a taste of it Friday, and then you get the real thing a week from now. Let's get to a baseball thought. I know we already talked about Jake Cave a little bit, but I got a thought about baseball playoffs here as I was watching the Yankees and the Guardians on Tuesday night. Yankees took a 1-0 series lead, a rather casual 4-1 win over Cleveland. A little bit of drama and hilarity when Josh Donaldson, former Twin, thought he hit a tie-breaking home run when the ball actually bounced off the top of the right field wall and he was thrown out, basically celebrating in his home run trot, thrown out between first and second base. Didn't end up costing the Yankees, though, and that's to my point here. Nothing really ends up seeming to cost the Yankees when they're playing these postseason games, playing against teams like Cleveland, or in so many years like the Twins, where they just have these obvious spending advantages when they can put Garrett Cole out there on the mound. Cole very sharp in this game. And it just occurred to me as I was watching this game that could have been the Twins. It's been the Twins so many times over the years. So many of those 18 consecutive postseason losses have been at the hands of the Yankees. And, it would have been nice to see the Twins, finish off this season in better shape and better form than what we saw them do this year. They spent so much of the year, contending in first place to a large extent before, succumbing to injuries and their own lack of depth. And Cleveland just really overtook them in the division race down the stretch. But it does not pain me at all to watch the postseason and see the Twins not being the bug on the windshield that they've been for so many of these years. That could have been them. That could have been them losing a very breezy and casual first game of the American League Division Series. Instead, they're at home making preparations for the for next season. Again, not what they would want to do, but not watching them lose in the postseason. That's not going to break anybody's heart right now, even if you'd rather see them get in and give it a try. It's been them so many times. Let Cleveland take some of these lumps right now instead of the Twins. Let's finish with the cooler, Brett Favre. Like I said at the outset, punt Brett Favre to the moon. This guy, I'm serious. Next step in his his ongoing saga is releasing a statement to Fox News Digital about how he's being smeared by the media in response to his involvement in this welfare investigation in Mississippi, saying, "I have been unjustly smeared in the media. I've done nothing wrong, and it is time to set the record straight." And sending out a statement to one sympathetic outlet is definitely what you do. Not taking questions. That's definitely what you do when you want to set the record straight. This guy is an idiot. You can tell that he was trying to get away with something here, basically trying to use temporary assistance for needy families' money, $77 million in that money, diverted, reading from the ESPN.com story, diverted from the poorest people in the poorest state in America towards rich and powerful Mississippians, and Brett Favre was right at the heart of it. He's saying he had no real understanding of what was going on, saying state agencies provided the funds to Nancy News charity, the Mississippi Community Education Center, and gave the funds to the university, all with the full knowledge and approval of other state agencies. He said, "I was told the legal work to ensure that these funds could be accepted by the university was done by the state attorneys and state employees." Next paragraph, Mississippi auditor Shad White, who has investigated the case, disagreed with Favre's recounting of events, which is a polite way of saying Shad White is calling Brett Favre the liar that he is. Obviously, Mr. Favre knew that he was being paid in government funds based on the texts. Shad White told the Associated Press on Tuesday, quote, "He knew that those funds were coming from the Department of Human Services. He's obviously acknowledged that he needed to repay those funds too." Favre's lawyer, by the way, told Fox that Favre, quote, "never got paid for a no-show appearance. Anyone's claimed otherwise does not know the true facts." He did not, however, respond to ESPN's request for comment. It could not be reached, ESPN said on Tuesday. Definitely also what you do if you are trying to set the record straight. So Favre not the subject of a criminal investigation right now. This is all stuff coming up from a civil case, including all these text messages that came out a couple weeks ago. Just so tired of greedy people trying to be more greedy. Favre right in the middle of this. I hope he gets whatever's coming to him in this case, because whatever he did, whatever he knew or didn't know, it doesn't look good for him right now. And whatever's coming to him, let it happen. That will do it for today. Should have Sarah McClellan on Thursday's show talking Wild ahead of their season opener on Thursday. Great conversation with her, so I hope you enjoy that as we ramp up coverage of all things Minnesota sports. Busy, busy, busy time of the year, but all of it good, and I hope you enjoy it. That's it for today. See you again on Thursday.